Hello, dear professor. My name is Jimmy Fernandez Mendy, and I'm pleased to talk about my research project, which is named Gamification Strategy to Enhance Grammar Skills of 11th graders of the Susana San Jose School. First of all, an important and considerable word to be taken into account in the research project is motivation because it constitutes an essential part of education. And according to Journal 2018, when a student is not motivated, that student couldn't even solve a problem if the student has the ability to do it. And in this context, in terms of education, a word appears to help the students feel engaged, to be motivated in class, and the word is gamification, which appears as an interesting and enjoyable way to learn according as Connolly states. Uh, Gamification has two important words that I want to point out, and the first word is enjoyable. It makes education and classes enjoyable because if a student feels that he's having fun, that student is probable, is likely to learn more. And if the student considers the class is interesting, so that learning is going to be useful, is going to be interesting, and we could have better results. Um, According to Cambridge Dictionary, gamification is a way to practice activity through games, and that makes the class more interesting. Games could some people could think that games uh, could be a problem because the student just could have fun and wouldn't learn. But the studies have confirmed that gamification is an excellent way um, to constitute or to be implemented in class. Um, 11th graders of the Susana San Jose School present each year standardized tests such as TOEFL and ICFES. In the latest report of TOEFL Junior, uh, these tests have shown that the students are presenting some difficulties, especially in language for a meaning, also known as grammar. Above 78% of the students are presenting these kind of problems, and they are these kind of problems are minus B1 level, so it means that the students not getting excellent results, excellent scores, especially in language for a meaning. In this context, gamification is intended to be implemented in class so that the students can have the abilities to learn the linguistic abilities in order that they can solve these kind of problems while they're having fun. um, the research question appeared here, and it is what gamification strategies can be implemented to enhance grammar skills of 11th graders of the Susana San Jose School. According to these introductions, objectives appear as a way to lead the research. The first and the general objective is to implement gamification strategies that allow students to enhance their grammar skill, which is taken from the problematic of the problematic situation in 11th graders. According to these general objectives, three specific objectives appear here. The first one is to observe the students' report in order to identify the quantity of the students having low and high results in language for a minute. And as I mentioned before, the students getting lowest grade is higher than the students that are getting higher scores. The second one is to design gamification strategies and activities that lead students to achieving correct basis of use of language in context. In this objective, it is to let students have the skills of language for a meaning in context, of course, not as a just as a game or as something that is out of context. And the third one is to know the student's perception when they're facing to these kind of activities. In theoretical framework, this research uh, has has taken into account some important words that are important to mention in this context. And the first one, as I said before, is motivation. Motivation, it is motivation is It's an important word that must be taken into account according to people's behavior. And according to Tohidi and Mendy in 2011, they say that people's behavior is directly affected regarding to the inner motivation. So what does it mean? It means that if a student is motivated, has that inner motivation, it is probable, it is likely that a student behavior is going to be different. It's going to be affected. So if a student thinks that feels that the class is interesting, so it means that a student is likely to have a better attitude according to this. And ASUS 2021 said that inner motivation is affected directly by extrinsic motivation. And what does it mean? When students face to tests that are going to assess their performance, when they have some motivation, some extrinsic motivation, they can have a better performance. It always happens in life when a person is motivated by a job, that person it is likely to give their best in the job. And the other word that appears here is gamification. According to Illa et al. In 2015, gamification leads effectiveness when these are used in class, as well as permit a longer participation is held in class. So, according to these concepts, gamification allows the class to be more engaged, to be more attentive, to lead effectiveness in class. And this is one of the objectives that are taken into account. For this research project, according to the methodology, it is carried out mixed research, which is taking into account both quantity and qualitative approach. According to Hernandez et al. In 2008, those kind of approaches involves both experience and data collection. Experience because in this context, the research project experiences, it is important to know students' perception, for example. It is also important to know how students are performing, what are their attitudes, what is the observation that can be seen in class, and of course data collection, because it's going to let the research to have the research have numbers that can say, okay, this is useful for class, or this hasn't been useful for class. In this context, it is taken into account. It was taken into account, or it was carried out through the direct observation. Direct observation was done in contact with the students in class. And some instruments were developed in this research project, which, for example, surveys through a Likert scale that allows the research to know students' perception, how they feel when they are having or they are facing these kind of activities that include gamification, but not only how they feel, but also if they consider that it is good for their learning, if they think that classes are more enjoyable and more interesting in this context. And evaluation, it took into account two important parts. The first one was the students' scores, so the students' results, TOEFL, both 2021 and 2022, and the sum of the gamification activity that were developed through the research in order to know how students feel, but also how students perform in this. And according to the objectives, there are some findings that are taken for the research. According to the first objective, that takes into account the observation of students' reports, TOEFL and ICFES reports, we found that for TOEFL Junior 2022, there was a decrease of students getting low grades. For example, for TOEFL 2022, students got 72% below B1. So it means that there was a decrease of 8% according to the previous year. According to the second objective, which was to design gamification strategies to foster students' ability, technology appeared as a support for this part of the class, for this part of the research. In this context, for example, where we use some tools like Nearpod, like Kahoot, like Quizzes, that allowed the research to have considerable results. The third objective, some instruments were designed through it to know the student's perception. In this context, Likert scale was developed to know how students, what the students think about this. And according to these three objectives, there are some findings that I want to mention here that are considerable to mention here. The first one, language for a meaning, appears to be the lowest score in a standardized test. However, there was a decrease of students getting lowest scores at TOEFL 2022. And there are several gamification strategies that can be implemented in class, as I mentioned, TOEFL, Nearpod, Kahoot, Quizzes. And students show a high interest in lessons with gamification. This was something that Likert scale showed in this context. Some conclusions about this. The first one is that the students have a positive attitude. Gamification shows as an effective way, as effective strategy to enhance the students' ability. Students think that classes with this kind of processes of activities are more interesting, and this is absolutely something that can't be allowed, and motivation can be omitted in the learning process. According to the surveys applied to some students, they think that they consider that gamification shouldn't be left out to this kind of process. Final considerations. Gamification and motivation constitute, as I said in the beginning of the presentation, an important part of the improvement of grammar soft skills in 11th graders. Both technology and manual resources are tools that have students engaged in class. And implementing gamification is a challenge for schools to be assumed seriously, not only as a game, not only as something that can be left out. These are the instruments that were applied to the cloud, the observation sheets, where the majority of the students were involved, where the students felt engaged to the class. The Likert scale that were done in class, like the gamification is an important part of the class, that increase the learning, that can get better grades according to the strategies taken into account. And these are some of the activities that were developed in class, such as Nearpod, Kahoot, and some of the results that the students got, right? Thank you so much, teacher.